grass below. And then the other day, I went down and looked out, and I couldn't believe it. 3 deer were within, like 3 feet of my door, eating the leftovers from.
Yeah,
They'll find
they are voracious. They're starving is what's the problem. There's too many of them.
These look pretty healthy, though.
They look okay, but I think there's just too many of them.
Oh, yeah.
They've stripped all the leaves off all the shrubbery in my yard.
Yeah, you can tell how tall the deer are. By
Exactly.
How far up.
Exactly.
Oh,
So I've turned on the live stream right now, so.
Yeah, the only thing is then she can't respond
Right,
on that.
no, she can't.
And, the idea was for her to use it for mission committee.
Yeah, I still think she should try that. She says she often watches the video.
Right, and it keeps turning in and out, so I don't know. If she just doesn't have a good signal or whatever, she's on her phone.
Right, she's on her iPhone. It was a good picture earlier. It's Miss Pat we're talking about.
I
Yeah.
understand. She was going to attend
She'll-
both.
Bible study?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we'll try again to get her onto the Zoom when the mission committee starts.
Okay, yeah, because I want her to be able to talk, although you can do a chat thing, right? With
Yes.
YouTube, but that's kind of awkward.
Yeah, it's slow too. Okay, so welcome to the live stream community. Thank you for joining us. I know most of you are not joining live, but you're seeing us. We're alive. We're moving. We're talking.
We are.
We're exchanging ideas and reading the Bible. And you're invited to listen in, and you're always invited to move over to the Zoom community or to come in person. We're at the High Mountain Presbyterian Church here in Franklin Lakes, and we are on our own Zoom channel on YouTube. And you can email me at revlouie, REVLOUIE @AOL.com for comments or for the Zoom invitation. Okay, who knows where we are in Jeremiah?
I think we're at 17.
Thank you. That's what I was thinking. That's what I thought. Do you agree? Okay, good.
Because the last little thing was, surely I'm going to teach them.
Right,
Oh.
that's right.
Oh, yeah,
They
okay.
know my name. So after last night, the Bible study last night, we spent most of our time chewing on the sour grapes of government and problems that are just unfolding. And it really does feel like chewing on sour grapes. It's a terrible experience. And then, so as I was at home, I'm thinking to myself, why? We're trying to read Isaiah, we're trying to read the Psalm, but I'm aware that different than the way the church established itself in America, if you look back to this culture, government of the people, God talk, and people talk, we're all, and temple talk, we're all the same thing.
Yeah.
They're all the same thing. So when you read the Psalm, you cannot abide by the North American rule that says, let's not mix our politics with our faith.
Right?
Because, and in a way, it makes me feel like I've been limping through life. Trying to focus on one leg, where the Bible, even into the New Testament, the language of the New Testament, Paul especially. Now, I don't like Paul's ideas in terms of how to get along with government, especially a government that is I want to say atheistic, but that's too sophisticated. It's a government that is
Not for the people.
not for the people and uncaring about God.
Okay,
Uncaring about God language.
right.
And so Paul says, I think in order to protect the young and vulnerable church, he says, do whatever you're told to do by your political rulers. You know, it's not quite the same, but when Jesus was asked, should we pay taxes?
Yeah.
Right.
And Jesus'
Yes,
response is, whose money is it? Well, it has Herod's picture on it. So you give to Caesar, or Caesar's picture, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. And I want to know, well, what belongs to Caesar? Really? I mean, I know Caesar says that it belongs to him, but the psalmist says,
Right.
it all belongs to God. All of it.
I go with the psalmist on
Yeah,
this.
I do too. And I think that's
Sorry,
what,
Jesus.
that's what locks us.
Maybe we don't understand exactly what Jesus was saying. You know, that's a good possibility.
Well, I think part of what he was doing was he was dodging. It wasn't time for him to be beaten up and crucified.
Right.
And if he had even breathed the idea that he was a part of any of the multiple rebellion groups that were circulating and were refusing to pay taxes, then they would have thrown him in jail. And so it sounds like, you know, he's like, I got no beef with the government.
Yeah.
But
That's one small little.
it's a very small little peek into it. And he was busy caring for and nurturing the small communities of people of faith who had been influenced not only just by Jesus, but by the disciples, and then Jesus is gone. So somebody's got to, you know, plow the field and plant the seeds for what's going to come. But by and large, the Bible, the biblical worldview is what government? What are you talking about? You know?
It's not the same, but
God uses the government to provide protection and safety, but if the government veers from its God-given role, in the language of the psalmist, you should expect the earthquake, man, because you're not going to continue.
Did this all start back when the Hebrews wanted a king?
I think it did.
Yeah.
And, you know, and think about that transition, because you had really the rules and the direction for the early Israelite community came from the prophet. It came from Samuel. It came from the clergy. The clergy were in charge. And then and the prophet, priest, they were in charge. They set up orderly life. They, you know, a little bit like, I know nothing about the more conservative Muslim communities, but the cleric is in charge, right?
no.
No?
No, well,
Doesn't-
look at across the Middle East, at the so-called Islamic states.
Yes.
There are a few that are theocracies.
Yes.
But most of them are dictatorships, and they don't care a fig about, you know, they just don't want to rile up the imams and all the clerics too much.
Right.
And they kind of co-opt, but it's more like Western
Okay, 'cause
idea.
I just-
And even back in these times, the government, the bureaucracies, and theocracy were one and the same. That you couldn't separate, you know, Athena's temple from the government. It was part of it. So that's like a long time thing. That's, you know, God and country and ruling. I mean, look at the Pope. The Pope was the ruler over all of Western Europe at one time, and the Orthodox Archbishop or whoever, I forget what they called
The
that.
Archbishop of Canterbury?
No. In
Eastern
the
Orthodox.
Byzantine
In
area.
the Byzantine church.
Yeah, they were the government.
Right.
So this is only kind of rather new in, you know, human experience that we're going to separate church and state. I think the idea came up in Europe, but when it got here, we ran with it. But it's still a problem because people don't know how to separate church and state. There's always that question. Well, if we don't establish a church, that's what we want. We don't want an establishment of church. But should it cut us off from our human instinct that is, if you're a person of faith, that plays a big part in how you want your politics to go. So it's hard to separate. You can't completely separate.
It's really
them.
interesting to me, the whole thing too. I just took 2 courses taught by an Irishman who he worked as an economist in a lot of, in Turkey and other places in the Middle East. And he was talking about the difference between the Irish church, he said, came from the Coptic church in Egypt.
Wow.
And it's much more nature oriented. And that split happened, he said there were 5 different, it was before the other split. I forget what the year was, but there were 5 different churches, the Armenian, the Coptic, whatever.
Syrian.
But that the Irish were originally, it was people from the Coptic, and that's where the whole monk thing came from, but about the nature. But he was talking about, because the Constantine was the head of the empire and the head of the church at the time, that there really was no difference,
Right.
Between government and church. It was all governed by Constantine.
Well, and that's, if you go to seminary now, they talk about when Constantine announced that all of Rome were Christian, but that was the Christianization and also the domination of the Christian message.
Right?
At the time, people, the headlines said, this is great news for the Christians, and the history has shown that instead, the edge, the mission, the whole understanding of the gospel was now completely captivated by the state. The state took it over. The state put symbols of Jesus on the cross on the shield of the soldiers who went in to murder the towns and villages of the Muslims. I mean, it was...
Well, yeah, that was a little bit further along, but...
Yeah, I know, that's down the road, but it continued.
Yeah.
And it has continued on. The bad word is Christendom. Christendom says that there is a kingdom of Christians ruled by an earthly ruler that's here.
Yeah.
Now,
The Pope did have precedence over all the heads of state throughout all Western Europe, too, because that was the big problem with Henry VIII. He didn't want the Pope to tell him what to do. The Pope really was in charge of all the kings and princes of all these principalities. And, it caused a problem after a while. The kings were a little bit too big for their britches, and, they dismissed the Pope. Then you got the schism between the Protestants and the Catholics. How many years have they been fighting over that? And then, I don't know, it's just... All throughout history, though, church and state, there's this tug of war. Who's in charge? And this shows that, they still haven't figured it out. They didn't figure it out between the Old and New Testament Hebrews. And I don't know that we think we're any much smarter, that we're going to figure it out.
well, I think we thought we had invented, words to describe the separation of church and state. And I think, at least in my life, there has been a period of, the gap's been maintained. But what I don't think anybody in history imagined was that in my lifetime, I can hear my dad talking about this now. He was a great separation of church and state. He didn't think, he had sermons he would preach about you cannot legislate the morality of Jesus Christ. You cannot.
Good for him.
You
Well,
cannot.
yeah.
You cannot legislate morality. Christianity works
obvious,
on
yeah.
the conversion of the heart, and the heart and mind and soul of individuals. It's his whole thing about that. But I don't think anybody, including my dad, ever imagined, although he got caught up in it at the end of his life, ever imagined that the state would court the church. That a president would appoint a spiritual director in the White House and choose one branch of the whole diaspora of Christianity,
It actually,
even religion, just,
yeah, they claim, you know, that the folks now that are trying to get a Christian nation established here, they didn't have to worry about that in the past because it really was a Christian nation. The minority religions were so minuscule, they had no effect. So they were overlooked or discriminated against
Right.
outwardly. So even though it didn't say in our Constitution that, you know, there shall be no establishment between government and the church, there really was. I mean, people assumed it was Christian. That was it. That was,
Protestant Christian.
well, and that also, because,
I remember, I was old enough to know, you know,
Yeah.
John Kennedy was running for president.
right.
Oh, yeah,
The
that's right.
question
It was a big deal
well,
that he
yeah,
was
because the
Catholic.
Pope was gonna then
the
tell
Pope was going to
country what
dictate,
do.
right, so there's always been that tension, whether our Constitution said so or not. And actually, these people now that want to, they're actually in a sense right, because we thought of ourselves as Christian nation. There was no other, you know, like, I had Jewish friends, but they
were
didn't.
different, weren't they?
They were different, and they didn't do all the fun I'm just speaking as a kid now in my recollections, but you don't celebrate Christmas? Oh, that was the big rift between us. There's things that concerned kids. But it just showed how out of touch and because Christmas is like the national, now it's the Super Bowl, but it was the big national holiday. And there was no question about that. Of course you're going to have, your school is going to shut down for Christmas. For, you know, for any other religious
And
holiday.
yet the
no.
founders of, and the writers of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, most of them were not practicing Christians.
You are correct, yeah.
So if I was writing,
Thomas
if I was
Jefferson.
writing a paper on this topic, I would make a distinction, and it's close in language. I agree. In the early times, America was a nation of Christians. But it was not a Christian nation. When you talk about it as a Christian nation, you now have a modifier in front of nation that says the rules and the context, and that's why it's important to know. And although, in rewriting history, the current ambitious Christians, instead of calling them evangelicals, because,
Right, yeah.
but the ambitious Christians today are trying to rewrite the history. So, you know, in theological seminaries that are not part of the recognized circle of learning, they're publishing papers on the fact that, you know, Thomas Jefferson and the founding fathers, they're digging through and they're finding prayers that they wrote, which prove that these people gave their hearts to Jesus Christ, and
But Thomas Jefferson wrote a Bible that eliminated all of that.
I know, but they don't care about that.
And he also had a Quran in his library and read
John
that.
Adams, they have a whole thing on the untold story of John Adams and his spirituality, and they reject
Well,
what we were told throughout our history classes, that these people were deists.
no.
They didn't disbelieve in God, but in no way did they believe that God was engaged in the world in a way that they needed to practice in their own lives. But you know, now all of it, the history is all up for grabs.
It's ebbed and flowed, though. Look at the 50s when they insisted on putting under God in our Pledge of Allegiance. There was a big movement then to re-Christianize or Christianize, I would
Well, I think they were recovering from a world war.
Probably.
I think a fear to the center of who human beings were had been awakened in the United States especially. And they again, almost like a reliving of the dynamics that you hear in the Psalms, you know, or I guess it's more in the prophets who say, who are you crying out to? Like, you have abandoned the foundation of a life of faith, being a blessing to the families of the earth, but now you want to come circle back around and ask for the blessing of God's protection. So let's put God, you know, on the money. Let's put God wherever.
I always thought, and this is not based in any study, but I always thought that a lot of that had, putting God in the pledge, had a lot to do with anti-communism. Because that, you know, that was the time period when the Cold War was going on, and being a communist was the worst thing.
Yeah, that could be too. Yeah, it just, I don't know, atheism was really despised. Remember Madeline O'Hare?
Madeline O'Hare,
Yeah.
And are we just
I
remember?
remember hearing her speak at college. Yep.
And now I think, you know, why do atheists have to, you know, apologize all the time? Is more, I think, maybe just being a moral country. But then of course, it's whose morals, I don't know. But, you know, we don't
Most
teach
people
ethics
are
anymore.
considered nuns, consider themselves nuns anyway. So is that an atheist? Is that a different word
Yeah,
for
I think it is.
atheism?
I think it is a different word, because most of those people who are interviewed who fall in the category of nun, it's no particular religious identification with any structured religion. And they love the fact, I hear this language all over in our culture. You know, I believe in God, but that church is not important. Church is a mistake. You know, I can practice my faith on a mountaintop or in a forest by a stream or in my own house. I don't need anybody. I don't need any structured religion. And that's what the nun is. No structured religion.
That's the fight between the Samaritans and the Hebrews, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Nothing changes.
Is anything new?
No. Oh.
Yeah, it was interesting too. I was just looking at my notes, and he was talking about when Constantine came along, that no longer was Jesus the carpenter. Jesus became the king.
Right.
And it was a whole different religion. And when they said that St. Patrick came to convert the Irish, basically the Irish monks converted Europe. They went to Europe and tried to preach their religion. It's unbelievable how different history can be. That's for sure.
And one of the things that gets talked about in my fundamentalist family all the time is, you know, you can't expect secular government to carry out the plan of God. You can't, because they will always lead you astray. They will always become the radical left, and they'll be, you know, welcoming things and ideas, and, you know, pretty soon you'll devolve into, you know, like a jungle religion of all kinds. And so what's going on now is the swing, which came actually at the end of Ronald Reagan's time, was the church that my parents grew up in wanted nothing to do with government. They had their own way through life. They were more like the German Moravians. You know, they would come, they would exist, they wanted people to leave them alone. The Amish are the same today. They won't fight in their wars. We are here, we're a peaceable people, and we will be a blessing to the families of the earth. We raise good produce, you know, we'll be a blessing that we exist here. But there came a time, and actually I think, I've read it, can't quote from where I read it from, but the linchpin that was pulled was abortion. And Jerry Falwell and the evangelical leaders of the church began to say that the church was falling asleep in its responsibility to have a moral government. The whole idea of the moral majority, you know, and the silent majority. It's time for the silent majority to speak up and to begin to punish the state and get the state back into a moral condition.
But whose
Or-
morals? I mean, that's it.
Right.
Abortion.
Yeah.
And that's all connected to sex.
It is, and that's always been the great nemesis of the one side of the Christian brain is the pure and spotless, the perfect person, and the other side, which is associated with sex, is always the bad side. It's the id. And that's what the government is there to do. It is to control the bad side of human beings. The problem, of course, is, and the news media will point it out, go to these moral people, look at their lives,
Yeah.
look at what they give themselves permission to engage in.
Exactly.
And they're all for, a capital punishment, which is the complete opposite of anti-abortion. And I don't think they quite see the irony of
Yeah,
that.
they'll never see that. No, they don't see that. Because that person that's being, put to death had a life to live, and they had
They
consequences
did bad.
for life. They lived a bad life. The child is innocent.
Right.
The child is innocent.
What
How can you kill a child before it has a chance to live?
It was interesting also with the Irish that at the time, this is before the Europeans came over, that the women were equal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
another.
abbesses sometimes would be in charge of monasteries rather than
I didn't
the
know
abbot.
that.
Then the abbot, yep. Yeah,
That's- listen, I believe, I don't have as much time as I used to have to read and research it, but I've dipped my finger enough into the history to show that the early Christian church was totally egalitarian. And I don't care how people translate what Paul says about a woman should be quiet in church. I think Paul was a part of that egalitarianism. He fully believed that it had been a mistake. And in the early years before the Christianization, the Romanization of the church, the Christian communities were run by women and men. And the women and the households were equal. They believed in the equality of the sexes. And that's all gone, because now
Well,
when you talk about being...
you've got Adam and Eve, the story, you can take that and hold it against women in the Christian version.
Yeah, don't I know it?
And it's been used right through history to, whenever they think women are having too much freedom, and freedom means sexual freedom, that's scary, so let's hold them back. You are supposed to be subservient to men. You were created second, which is also, who said? And then you were the ones who enticed Adam with, you are the seed of all sin.
Yeah, look at your decision.
So we need to control these people.
Yeah.
But
They-
you need us.
Yeah, you need us, but you don't really like us too much, and you'd rather keep us, subdued. Don't let them get too uppity,
I'm interested in what you said about Paul sounding like he was anti-woman, but not really being that way.
Well, so the seminary that I went to was a womanist seminary, and the scholars were womanists. And if you dig into the Apostle Paul and his theology and his instructions about women, the early Christian church was the most diverse combination of religions, of animism, of all the relics of all those religions, and people from all those religious traditions were being converted.
Not just the,
Yeah, it wasn't like it wasn't your the woman down the street who was coming in, and what Paul was dealing with was when the church would gather, they would have a feast. They had a love feast, which was witness to the breaking down of the barriers. Everybody was welcome. And it was a sign.
together.
Yep, it was a sign of the outbreaking of God's love. But then, when the meal was over, there was a time of teaching. That was a borrowing from the synagogue. And in the time of teaching, it wasn't clear who was qualified to teach and who wasn't. Paul believed that if you were going to teach, you should have a master's degree. No, you should have graduated. And he didn't see his own bias to think that, well, you know, you were schooled as a Jew. So isn't your Christianity going to be overly influenced in the Jewish tradition?
Well, of course.
Which it would.
Right.
But Jesus was a Jew too. What Paul was frightened by and threatened by was the greatest majority of women who were being converted to Christianity were from the fertility cults. And they're getting up in the gathering and they're teaching. They're teaching. And so Paul's thing is, stop it. You have to stop. You have to stop because there is a true strain of Christianity. And how did Paul know that? Because Paul was taught, instructed, and tutored by 3 women. And I can't think of her name right now, but in the early Christian church, Paul was not the preeminent teacher. The
Right.
preeminent teacher was a woman by the name of...
Was it Penelope, or there were a couple?
There were
yeah.
3. And in
can't
some of
think
the
of which
paintings on
ones
some of
they
the
are.
survival caves where they went for their survival, they have models of the hierarchy of the leadership of the church.
That's cool.
Paul is there, his face is there, and then there's a woman who is over him. And this is the part I just, because what happened is, as the male-dominated Christianity began to take over the early church, they went into those caves and scratched out the faces and the story. They X'd out the story of these women that taught Paul. And the only thing that remains of it is there's a little bit of Paul in his telling of his own story where he thanks the women who gave him the instruction.
Not Penelope. Priscilla.
Priscilla, that's it.
Yeah.
Priscilla, Chloe, Lydia,
Chloe.
Apphia, Nympha.
Yeah, if they had left,
Yeah.
if they had been protected somehow from male chauvinists, who, you talk about what different traditions brought into the Christian community. So the fertility goddess needed to learn something about, what was a more true teaching of God. So the male chauvinists needed to leave their male chauvinism behind and recognize that was not part of the Jesus movement either, but they didn't. They won. They came in and they began to systematically remove any sign that women had any real influence.
So that's why women can't be priests, they can't be
Yeah.
apostles, but they were all those things.
They were all of that.
Yeah. And also, Paul, as evidenced by his letters, was trying to make a coherent church. So there were a lot of compromises in his letters. He didn't
Yes.
say the same thing to each community. He often was contradictory. So, and I forgive him for
Apparently
that
knowing what was
because
going on there.
right,
and
you don't want to have total
Yeah,
chaos.
because there was
Yeah.
one of the biggest problems with gluttony. I mean, the love feast, which took place on Sunday, many of them went to their synagogues and temples on Saturday, and then they gathered for the love feast. And to one church, I don't think it's the Galatians, but he is trying to encourage them to exercise moderation and to see the greater need of the whole community, because they're showing up early
Right.
to the feast and eating all the food. So when the rest of the people come, there's no food.
They were loving it.
They were loving it. Like, yeah, this is great. Let's get together. And also drunkenness was a really big
Exactly.
part of the problem,
Yeah.
And so I just,
Having a good time, huh?
yeah, having a great time. And why not? In the freedom.
know.
Because the church was announcing freedom. It was announcing freedom. It was announcing the good governance of God, of the coming of the Holy Spirit, which was anointing them as children of God. And they were no longer slaves. They were not slaves. Whether they had been slaves in reality or not, they were free. Now, in order to keep peace, Paul comes back around and he says, now, those of you who are currently serving as slaves, He didn't want to be this part of a rebellion. He didn't want to be part of a revolution out there in the government world. He wanted that revolution to take place in the hearts and minds of people. And so I don't know. And then, you bring up the Adam and Eve story. And again,
It's been there.
I feel like I have a big hand over my mouth, because if you look at the Hebrew in the story of the creation of human beings, it is totally egalitarian.
And that's the way it is in Islam, too.
It is.
It's neither
No,
one or the other.
Earthling. God reached down with God's hand and drew up the earthling, formed the earthling into a living being with breath and all the rest of it, and then looked and said, all the other creatures have males and females. This one has none. This one is self-sufficient.
Adam and Adama.
Yeah.
And that was I think it was Socrates that had that homunculus, kind of like this thing that was actually two in one. So it's not a new idea either.
It's not a new idea.
But,
so when the President of the United States announces that there are only two sexes,
yes.
then I want to say, okay, really? And what was the first human being?
Yeah.
Because he was neither male nor female. He was both male and it's not a nice word, pronoun, but it was the earthling.
And in the womb, the fertilized egg starts out as female, and then the differentiation takes place.
That's what education will get you.
Oh,
That's why education cannot be free to teach what it wants to learn.
Let's remember
You
the
cannot.
Scopes trials. We can't.
You cannot. Education is not the pathway to freedom.
No.
And why are we educating our children to this?
But why are we so concerned over these things rather than the basic humanity? Be a blessing. Isn't that easy to interpret in all cultures? Don't kill your neighbor. Be kind to your neighbor. Treat your neighbor as you would have them treat you. Why do all the other jazz and all the theocracy and that tears us apart. My theology is different from your. That's all beside the point. We could all do the be kind and be a blessing without having churches and synagogues and. Okay, sorry everybody, but we could do that.
Yeah, but here's the foundation. There's two different foundations.
Mm-hmm.
The foundation of what you're talking about is a foundation that starts with a bountiful God and a bountiful earth and a bountiful life. The foundation that is in place in most of our cultures is a foundation of scarcity. It is scarcity which
Drives you to steal and.
Which leads people to draw in. J.D. Vance said that the Bible teaches you take care of your family first, and then you take care of your closest neighbors, and you move out. And then the Pope went nuts
Right.
and said, "What kind of Catholic are you?" That is not what we teach, because the foundation, go to the Psalms. The Psalms go back over and over and over again and say, the God who created the earth is a God of endless bounty.
Exactly.
Of superfluous supply. Mm-hmm. And that in light of that, those of us who know this God know that God built into the earth, one grain of wheat falls into the ground, it dies, and it produces 100 grains of wheat.
It's basically the Islamic philosophy as well. A lot of the names, the 99 names, have to do with abundance.
Yeah, it's abundance.
And there's stories about, the leaders who hoarded stuff and what happened to them. It was never good. So the lesson is there. The lesson is there. The lesson is in the Quran. Can we not see it? Why do we get involved in, what's the real place of women? What do you look like? How are you dressing? How are you holding your hands when you pray? Are you coming, it's like people get over, exorcised about all these little things that differentiate and forget the main message.
Yeah, and I think so to the way I think about it, we get into those things of are you living right, doing right, all the rest of that, because of the scarcity model. Who's going to get that who's going to get that privileged position? There's only one. Who's going to get that? And climbing on top of each other. This is why, I wept through Jimmy Carter's funeral. Because the man did not believe in the priority of position. He didn't. He believed in the priority of service. And why would you be in priority of service? Because service will only take you down the ladder of life. And how can you do that? You can do that because you believe in the abundance of God and the goodness of God to care for you so that you can give your life in the care and keeping of other people.
First shall be last, last shall be first.
It's everywhere.
Somebody
It's
should
on
warn
every page.
Donald Trump when he tries to pretend he's a man of faith. Here we go again. I'm not going to mention that name again. Sorry.
I just got a message that Pat is with us somehow.
Hi, Pat.
And
Hello, Pat, wherever you
I
are.
think she's watching on...
Yeah, she's
On
on
the
Zoom.
YouTube?
I resent your invitation for, I'm sorry, she's watching on YouTube.
Yeah, she's watching the live
at the end.
broadcast. Hi,
I
Pat.
resent the Zoom, and hopefully, I said try when we go to mission meeting.
What did she send a message?
yes, and she's wondering what the reading was.
Oh.
Well, we haven't read it yet.
Right. Gee, I guess
Thanks
maybe
for
we
getting us back on
should.
track.
Jeremiah 17.
Well,
Yeah.
we did establish that.
All right, so let's do that, shall we? Let's see what Jeremiah has to say. He's a lot to say.
Sin and punishment.
Yep.
Well, I read last week, so.
I guess that means.
Do you have
Yes.
it?
Barbara, you want to read? I read last night.
I guess it's the buck is in my hands now.
Passing the hot potato.
Okay. The sin of Judah is written with an iron pen, with a diamond point. It is engraved on the tablet of their hearts and on the horns of their altars, while their children remember their altars and their sacred poles, beside every green tree, and on the high hills, on the mountains, in the open country. Your wealth and all your treasures I will give for spoil as the price of your sin throughout all your territory. By your own act, you shall lose the heritage that I gave you, and I will make you serve your enemies in a land that you do not know. For in my anger, a fire is kindled that shall burn forever. Thus says the Lord, cursed are those who trust in mere mortals and make mere flesh their strength, whose hearts turn away from the Lord. They shall be like a shrub in the desert and shall not see when relief comes. They shall live in the parched places of the wilderness, in an uninhabited salt land. Blessed are those who trust in the Lord, whose trust is the Lord. They shall be like a tree planted by water, sending out its roots by the stream. It shall not fear when heat comes, and its leaves shall stay green. In the year of drought, it is not anxious, and it does not cease to bear fruit. The heart is devious above all else. It is perverse. Who can understand it? I, the Lord, test the mind and search the heart, to give to all according to their ways, according to the fruit of their doings. Like the partridge hitching what it did not lay, so all who amass wealth unjustly, in mid-life it will leave them, and at their end they will prove to be fools. O glorious throne, exalted from the beginning, shrine of our sanctuary, O hope of Israel, O Lord, all who forsake you shall be put to shame. Those who turn away from you shall be recorded in the underworld, for they have forsaken the fountain of living water. Lord, heal me, O Lord, and I shall be healed. Save me, and I shall be saved, for you are my praise. See now, they say to me, see how they say to me, where is the word of the Lord? Let it come. But I have not run away from being a shepherd in your service, nor have I desired a faithful day. You know what came from my lips. It was before your face. Do not become a terror to me. You are my refuge in the day of disaster. Let my persecutors be shamed, but do not let me be shamed. Let them be dismayed, but do not let me be dismayed. Bring on them the day of disaster. Destroy them with double destruction. Thus said the Lord to me, go and stand in the people's gate, by which the kings of Judah enter and by which they go out, and in all the gates of Jerusalem, and say to them, hear the word of the Lord, you kings of Judah, and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem will enter by these gates. Thus says the Lord, for the sake of your lives, take care that you do not bear a burden on the Sabbath day, or bring it in by the gates of Jerusalem. And do not carry a burden out of your houses on the Sabbath, or do any work, but keep the Sabbath day holy, as I commanded your ancestors. Yet they did not listen or incline their ear. They stiffened their necks and would not hear or receive instruction. But if you listen to me, says the Lord, and bring in no burden by the gates of this city on the Sabbath day, but keep the Sabbath day holy, and do not work on it, then there shall enter the gates of this city kings who sit on the throne of David, riding in chariots and on horses, they and their officials, the people of Judah, and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and this city shall be inhabited forever. And people shall come from the towns of Judah, and the places around Jerusalem, from the land of Benjamin, from the Shephelah, from the hill country, and from the Negev, bringing burnt offerings and sacrifices, grain offerings and frankincense, and bringing thank offerings to the house of the Lord. But if you do not listen to me, to keep the Sabbath day holy, and to carry in no burden through the gates of Jerusalem on the Sabbath day, then I will kindle a fire in its gates. It shall devour the palaces of Jerusalem and shall not be quenched. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
You have been warned.
Yeah, I think the versing in the middle part fits right into what we were talking about. You know, the partridge hatching what it did not lay. There is security, and there's even wealth and confidence. I love it, you know. All of a sudden in the middle of these readings pops up a verse that I'm very familiar with, and we all are, right? Blessed are those who trust in the Lord, whose trust is the Lord. Wow, what a re-saying. Whose trust is the Lord. They shall be like a tree planted by water, sending out its roots by the stream. Shall not fear when the heat comes, and its leaves shall stay green. The year of the drought, it is not anxious and does not cease to bear fruit. So there's the bounty. There's the promise of the bounty of the earth. That, you know, take a lesson from how life living life, plants and birds, how they endure.
And to me, this is very specific about planting yourself by the water.
Yeah.
Not, you can't just go off and do whatever you want.
No,
You
that's
still
right.
expect that bounty.
That's right. Yeah, you can't just go off and live as if it doesn't matter.
And, animals, this tree is lucky, it was planted by the water, but.
Exactly.
Take this call. I think that's why there's footnotes about this, but that's why it moves into the rule of the Sabbath.
Yeah, I want to hear about that.
Well, there's a connection to Sabbath, which is you let go of doing whatever you think you need to do to your own survival. But the Sabbath is a day where you cast yourself literally, your family, your future, and everything into the care of God. And yeah, maybe there's work that needs to be done today, but you don't do it.
Drop that burden for tomorrow,
You do.
huh?
You just wait. You live your life, and you do it as a practice of faith. It's Walter Brueggemann has made a career out of explaining the Sabbath and reminding us that when Israel was in captivity in Egypt, Moses went down to demand that the people be let go. It wasn't let go and give them up. It was let them go to celebrate the Sabbath. It was a very specific request. What he asked for was, he said to Pharaoh, these people are identified by the Sabbath. They do not work on the seventh day. Please let them go into the wilderness, 1 day's journey into the wilderness. Let them repent of the days they have not celebrated the Sabbath, and let them have a Sabbath. And Pharaoh said, what do you think, I'm stupid? I know what you're up to. You're going to go a day's journey into the wilderness away from me, and then you're going to go 2 days and 3 days, and you're going to be gone. And Moses, look, you're making a big mistake. And he said, no, I don't want to do this. So, he started doubling their load. He doubled their work and made them make bricks without straw. But the whole point was, I am in charge of this people. I own their identity. They will always have an identity of being Pharaoh's slaves. And that's where Moses, and supposedly all the followers of God are willing to say, we will be marked in this way. We are people who do not work on the seventh day. And we don't clean, we don't do anything.
We don't carry anything.
We don't carry anything.
The Orthodox still don't
You
carry anything.
can't even push the button on the
Right.
elevator.
Or your stove to turn, you have to set it up ahead of time and it automatically, and they really take that seriously, very seriously.
Well, the super Orthodox do, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's why the towns have the eruv, which became a big point of contention a few years back in Tenafly. They string a wire on the tops of all the telephone poles. And in this, if you're in this, you're considered still in the area of the temple, so that you can actually push the baby carriage, and so you can walk to temple and do it legally according to the rabbinic law, which is so complex. Every group has a different version, but yeah, and then people caught on in the communities that they had these up, and it wasn't doing any harm.
No, but they didn't like
They
it.
didn't like it, yeah, and so it became an issue, so. And then my friends who are Reformed, they're like, it's a lot of nothing, because they don't do that thing, but,
Do they practice the Sabbath?
Who, the Reform?
No,
Her friends.
yeah, some of them did, because I had friends that were Orthodox, and they wouldn't come to the homeless shelter and serve on a Saturday. And we had Saturdays, so they could never participate. So, but then I had so many friends that were Jewish, and they were like, we're in, we'll go, you know, because the Reform and I guess that newest group that's super liberal, I forget what they call them, Reconstructionists. Yeah, they don't pay attention to a lot of the rabbinical law. It's like, we're here, we're living in this modern day and age, we make compromises. So there's all these sects that, you know, don't agree with each other. And is that not true in Christianity? I know it is in
Oh my
Islam.
goodness. Yes,
Yeah,
it's true.
it's true in every faith,
Well,
I
and
think.
it's not even,
All the arguments.
it's also very individual, isn't it?
It is. And, you know, who knows what people do when they're in their own homes.
Exactly.
But frankly, I like the idea of the Sabbath, and
Oh, I
it's
do
not
too.
an idea in Islam. Friday happens to be the day that you would equate with the Sabbath.
But it's not
It's
the
the
same.
day when it's Jummah, we gather in for, you know, the big prayer. I mean,
For
for
congregational.
congregational. Actually, it's open five times a day, every day for,
Yeah,
but that's the big day. That's the day that the men are obligated to go. The women, you have other things at home that you can be paying attention. That's the idea. There's a lot of women there, believe me. So, you know, it was something that Islam explains it like,
Cat just popped on.
Hi, Pat.
oh, Pat, hello.
Hi.
She's got a
Hi.
voice too.
Hallelujah.
It's like she's
Amen,
here.
Barbara.
Anyway,
You know, it's weird for me because I forget sometimes how conservative the family was that I grew up in.
yeah,
I mean, my father was a pastor of a Pentecostal church, which had been through all kinds of resistance and rebellion, and I had their own path made.
But was it connected to a national
Yeah,
church?
Assemblies of God.
Okay.
Yeah, biggest Pentecostal
Yeah.
denomination there is. And you go down to Central America right now, it is the fastest growing denomination. Assemblies of God is like bursting. But in the Assemblies of God church, they practiced, my family practiced. My parents had 7 children who on Sunday were in their rooms and they were quiet. We were quiet. There were no friends. There was no radio.
You socialized at church a little bit?
We did. Yep, there was,
But that was it.
you go to church. Church was like an hour and a half long, sometimes 2 hours. And we would come home, and the only person allowed to work on
Was
Sunday was
the
my
mom.
mother.
because she had to make the
Right.
meal.
But she also had a way of, like, she made a roast. It was a roast. Every Sunday it was a roast. And she'd put the roast into the timer on the oven, and the roast would roast while we were at church. And then the mashed potatoes took no time at all, so she did all that. She set the meal out, but as soon as the meal was over, all of us cleaned up.
Oh.
Washed the dishes, because we were hurrying to the rest, to the Sabbath, to the do nothing part.
Oh.
And my parents, they were gone.
Great.
They were in the bedroom. I'm sure they were sleeping, but and we were confined to our quarters.
Really?
Could you read?
Yes, we were allowed to read, preferably the Bible, and that was made clear. And we were also allowed to listen to one radio station. It was, oh man, don't let me forget, Zarephath.
Oh,
Yeah, it was the Christian radio station out of Zarephath, New Jersey. What were the call letters? Oh, I can't believe it. Because it's been drilled into my head. But, you know, we lived, so in that box, we lived in a very conservative box.
No cousin Brucey on the radio?
Well, I did. I had a little transistor radio
Under
my
your pillow.
And the thing
We
that
all
was
did that.
always got me in trouble was, remember they used to ring a chime, ding, you know, on WABC, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And it carried out from under my pillow.
Oh,
So
There it is.
my brother would be aware that I was, you know, and then he'd hold it over me in a blackmail.
oh, gosh.
Yeah, you know, and I'm reminded of that cloistered living when I compare my knowledge of that time period of the musicians. You know, well, I don't know any of that.
None of that is,
I wasn't allowed to participate in any of that or to know any of that.
Oh, no.
And now,
I feel sorry for
I
you.
know, I feel sorry for me too.
No dancing,
No.
none of those happy
No.
memories of.
I tell the sad story. I had to go to public school. There was always a unit in gym of square dancing. And I had to take a note from my mother to say
remember
that
square
I was not allowed to participate in square dancing. Me and what was her name? Anna and a Jehovah Witness.
A Jehovah
Two
Witness,
of us
yeah.
would sit together and watch everybody else dance.
Believe me,
Were
it
your
wasn't,
legs just kind of.
I don't
it
know.
was not a lot of fun, because you always got paired up with that kid that you really hated.
Oh,
was
the
your
square
partner.
dancing.
Oh, we scored
Hey,
against it
we
in
did too.
all-girls gym in high
Oh,
school.
well, no, we had mixed, and it was awful. They stepped on your feet on purpose, they pulled your, was not nice. This is before you got to the age where it was nice to be with the boys and the girls. This was like the nasty age.
Yeah.
Like you're all creeps.
So my own identity, I think, is scarred, not just from having lived in that, but then I also watched my mother and father transition out of it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, what?
What happened?
Like, what? Wait, I thought that was God's law. I thought that was God's rule.
Yeah.
And then so all of a sudden for them, I remember the first meal when my father had a glass of wine.
Oh,
And then I realized he was smoking cigars.
on the Sabbath.
And my mother then began to wear makeup. She was not allowed to wear any makeup at all, no jewelry of any kind. But
What's the transition? That's interesting.
I don't know what caused it. I think it was my father's, his idealism when he first really converted. He grew up in the Presbyterian church, but as he says, he had an emotional, spiritual experience which the Presbyterian church didn't know what to do with. So he left. And that became a great disillusionment for him. After a period of time, he didn't see anybody else, carrying that life out faithfully. And he just, I think, he's a smart man. He gave up on it. And he started to read a lot of liberal theologians.
There you
He
go.
was a voracious reader. He read everything. And so,
Well, you know what? There's not a lot of basis for this.
yeah, and so all of a sudden,
Well,
my father preached 7 sermons in a row on the topic of love, based on Leo Buscaglia's book on love. That's like one of the most liberal,
Right.
like non-conventional, and then 2 of the sermons were identical. He preached the same sermon 2 weeks in a row, and people were like,
I think we heard that, right?
no, they didn't.
They didn't.
They didn't know that they had heard that
They
sermon
didn't pay attention.
the week before, and that was a huge
that probably-
discouragement there.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
And I feel like I go through waves too, where I have a brain, and I watch what's happening. I watch the church in the world today, and I'm embarrassed.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I'm embarrassed. I just...
Hey, look,
You don't want
I'm
to
a
be
Muslim.
associated with that.
I'm a Muslim. I watch some of this stuff and I go, oh, no, that's not Islam. I know. Yeah, you feel like this is not right. But, what does it say in there about
Yeah,
our
what does it
brains?
say?
It says something
something
about
about
our
what?
brains are not, our minds. What is that?
Our heart is devious.
The
above
heart is
all.
Oh, the
devious.
heart, the
Heart
heart.
is devious.
It is perverse.
It is. And who
Well,
knows?
then I, the Lord, test the mind and search the heart.
But nobody out there can, so
And yet, my heart, mind, body, soul, all of it rejoices with things like verse 5. Verse 19. Wait, where is it? Verse 7.
Verse 8.
Verse 7 and 8. Blessed are those who trust in the Lord.
Yeah.
I get that. I know what trust means. I can't always do it, but I know.
Yeah, we have times of that, don't
Yes.
we?
Yes, right?
Oh,
I
okay.
trust in the Lord. And
Yeah.
I want to be like a tree planted by the water and
Yeah.
have roots that go out and that I can endure heat and cold and leaves that will stay green. Yes, I
Yeah.
get all of
I
that.
love that too.
But then verse 9, the heart is devious
heart
above
is
all
devious.
else. It is perverse.
perverse.
That's
That's a good sermon for a Baptist minister.
Yes, it is.
It truly is.
It's a good sermon for any preacher, period. I have heard good sermons from rabbis in Reformed synagogues who preach better than a lot of Presbyterian pastors. And they take verses like this and they apply it to life. Trust in
It
the
is
Lord.
it is the Hebrew scripture.
It is their
They
text.
should know it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
My commentary says that trusting the heart is just another way of trusting in man.
Oh, so knowing that the heart is perverse,
Right.
you defer to trust in God and don't lean, what is it? Don't
On
lean
your own
to
understanding.
Right.
Cautious about the inclinations and direction of the heart. He noted how the evil heart of the people of Judah had led them astray.
Oh gosh,
Well,
this is true.
See, I always think of the
there's
heart
something good in it.
as
Really
good
Yes.
and kind. I don't
Yeah.
think of the heart as evil.
Right.
If I trust my heart, it's caring.
But maybe that's because you ultimately trust in God and He has your heart.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you,
where I like
preacher.
to think of the mind and the heart, and I know the body is a whole, but the mind being the devious part and the heart being the part.
Well, there have been many times in my life where I wish I trusted my mind and not my heart. I mean, especially, because I lived a significant period of my young adult life trying to find a partner and trusted my heart over and over again, only to find out that was the biggest mistake I ever made.
Oh.
So, I come back to, okay, what's it, heart or mind? I don't know.
It's gotta be both.
It's got to be
It's
both.
got to be
Amen.
some
It is.
So,
And spirit.
unified
heart, mind, and spirit.
body.
Right.
The three. All three. That's the Trinity to me.
There you
There
go.
you go.
All right. Oh man, good conversation. At least it was for me.
Yeah, we
I,
didn't go too far into the
Right.
current events
No.
today. We stayed
Managed to
away.
talk about what is this shell we're in, rather than trying to get down to the details of what's happening. So that's probably good.
Yeah, I would say.
We can defend ourselves if we're called
Okay,
before the
great.
truth and
Pat,
consequences.
do not hang up. You
That's
can't, don't hang up, Pat.
I will not, Barbara. I just wanted to read this one thing Pastor Lou had said during his pastoral talks during COVID, and I don't know where the quote comes from, but he had said, and I love this. Lord, you have searched me, and while smiling, have called out my name. And I love that. That just was so touching to me. And I thought, oh, you even know me and you're smiling at me.
That's comforting.
Yeah, it really was. It was one of the wonderful things that Pastor Lou passed on during our COVID speaks,
Yeah, I'm trying to think where that it's a whole song.
Yeah,
I think it comes out of the Taizé community
okay.
in France.
Well, it spoke to me, Pastor Lou.
No, it's not.
I told you that
It's
a few
from Central
times.
America. It's a Central American. It's
Oh,
that
okay.
same hymn about Lord, you come to the
Oh my
lake
gosh,
shore.
we've been listening to that one, right?
Right.
Down by the lake
Yeah,
shore,
you come
right?
to the lake shore.
Yeah.
I've left my boat behind
Yeah,
Right.
to search other seas.
that's it.
I love the tempo of that hymn.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a lovely hymn.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Bible study group.
Okay.
Yes.
Somebody blow the
Thank you.
trumpet. Somebody blow the trumpet and summon the missions committee.
Yeah.
Okay. A few minute break,
Okay.
but don't hang up.
I'm
I
glad
will
to
not-
see that the Bible study group and the mission group are closely aligned.
That's right, and that's the way it should be.
Right.
I hope so.
Hi,
Yeah.
Debbie.
Here.
Hello and bye-bye. Have a good mission committee meeting. Nice to
Take care,
see you,
Deb.
Pat.
Have a good
Yeah.
day.
Have a good day, Debbie.
Thank you. You too, Pat.
Thanks.
Okay, I'll be
won't
back in
here
a few.
next week. I'll be going to the airport.
Oh, okay, well, we will be praying for you.
Yeah,
Thank you. I hope you will.
yeah. I got a text from my daughter, said at 2 o'clock, they're gonna make they're gonna try and restitch, which they were told to begin with, there wasn't a lot of skin left, because you know, the legs
No, I know
on
they
a short hair,
have
skin.
on them. And dogs' legs don't.
Yeah.
They just don't.
So they're gonna try. Oh, their dog had a very big tumor removed from one of his legs and a couple smaller ones from, well, he's 2 weeks in, it's almost time to take off the cones. He only had a little spot left that was left to heal. And he managed to get at the bandage, tore it off and tore out some of the stitches. And
Dogs are something else, aren't they?
now he's got 2 cones on.
I'll fix it. I'll fix it.
Let me
Exactly.
get at it.
And she said, I watch him all the time. She said, I went to take a shower. When I came out, the bandage was on the ground. And how he got to it, now he has 2 cones. So today he's got to go back, she said, at 2 o'clock, and the surgeon will look at it again and see if they can restitch. She's afraid they'll have to amputate it if it doesn't. Yeah, that's what she was afraid of. So she was beside herself yesterday. It was her birthday yesterday. The only thing that saved the day was my granddaughter got into all the schools she applied to and got some big scholarships. So that made her happy.
Well, I'm happy for her. That is a good thing. That's a big life event.
It is.
It is beautiful. Now she
Even
just
though-
has to decide which one to go to.
Exactly, yeah. See, she had said she didn't want to go at all, so we have hope now. She can be peculiar, my oldest grandchild. So we'll see.
old?
She's 17. Yeah. So, anyway, but pray for the dog. Is that okay to pray for a dog? I pray for them all the time.
You're talking about dog
Okay,
people here.
right. I always pray for all the animals they own and everything else, so, anyway.
I feel it's selfish to pray for the dog because the reason I want to pray for the dog is I don't want anything to happen to my dog. So
Yeah,
it's like,
that's appropriate.
yeah,
Why not? Anyway, all right, have a good meeting,
okay.
Thanks.
and I guess I won't see
I'll see
you
you
before
tomorrow.
you go. Have a good trip and a safe trip.
you.
Yeah, you'll get out of the snow.
If I get out.
Bye-bye.
It's a good time to go, based on that, yes.
Okay. My wife can never understand why I'm always so calendar challenged. Calendar challenged, you know, meetings I go, oh, I forgot about.
You know what, I discovered that I was really having trouble because I was trying to put the calendar on my computer and phone. And I just,
You went back to that, write it down.
something about the visual and the writing it helps me
I think
along.
that's what I need to do too.
I just decided, you know what, I'm gonna just do what works for me, because
But I have so many experiences like what just happened. So Danielle, down at the preschool, we know we all have to get recertified for Red Cross, for life-saving. So she talked to the instructor. She sends me a text while I'm here and says, okay, he has the following dates available. Which ones would you prefer? And I'm like, I'm trying to stay in the class.
Yeah, no.
So then, okay, so I thought, okay, how am I gonna make this decision? Monday nights are usually okay for me. So I picked a Monday night on the calendar and I sent the date back to her as a Monday night. Now, just because I picked it doesn't mean it's done. So I can't put it on my calendar yet, because it's,
Yep.
I mean, so it'll get on there.
But you see, if you use my method.
If I had written,
You do it in
Right.
pencil,
yeah, and I could have said, to be confirmed.
or
I don't, maybe that's
a little
it.
question mark by it, whatever. just so
Maybe
that's
that is
there.
it. This whole thing of electronics is overrated.
Well, I think there's some really good things, and I think for maybe much younger people who
Yeah.
grew up with it, it works just fine, although not my granddaughter, interestingly. She said, she and I talked about it, I said, this is what I did, she said.
I don't know, I'm thinking that suggestion, maybe that's what I'll do.
Find one that works for you, that you can carry around with you, that's not too bulky, but it still has enough room to.
And I have, what happens is if early on, I got a call on Monday to do a funeral on Thursday. So that sticks in my brain.
That's
I put it in, I put it in my phone. It's there and the alarm will go, but it's not enough. It's not. So I went to my desk, put a piece of paper on my desk and I wrote it down.
A date down?
Wrote it down?
Yeah.
We were
Yeah.
just talking,
Yeah,
I went back too.
yeah, I've got, it's,
I
you can't just
I-
depend on that. Because it doesn't always remind you, the phone,
No.
or the weird reminder, or you say a day before, yeah.
Or I forget to open it up and look for it.
Right, yeah.
And I'm in a lot of settings where I have to silence my phone.
Right,
So-
yes,
so
you're not
the
using it.
reminder makes a sound, which is silent.
Okay, Jenna's
Your
here.
silence. Yes, hi there, hello.
Hi, Janet.
Hello there, Pat. Hi. I'm glad you're on. I could see all the backwards and forwards with the Zoom and the.
Yes, you know how I am about,
Oh no, you're not the only one.
yeah, okay. Thank you, Janet.
Please,
I know you understand.
of course. Oh, well, nice to see you. Nice to see you, Barbara.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, you're away from all the hubble of the snow upon snow.
We have had quite a lot.
Quite a lot of snow.
I have just been so grateful that I live where I live and I don't have to worry about the snow shoveling or cleaning off my car.
Isn't that nice, eh?
Wow, I can't believe they do that.
Well, I have someone that comes and does my snow, but they came on Sunday morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I thought, it was still dark, and then I really didn't check until Monday. I cleared off my car, and it wasn't really until I checked Tuesday that there was a whole load of snow at the side with ice, and then I had a mess. He'd left a mess, so I sent him a text last night, and I thought, well, if he doesn't come back again, so I spent 2 days digging up the ice, breaking the ice. I was so annoyed, so I texted him and told him what he didn't do. So I thought, was he going to come today? But he came and did a really good job. Excellent. So I must have written
Janet, I'm laughing because I had said, Elaine had offered me a ride on Sunday, and I said, I have to stay here because I have this young man coming who's going to do my snow removal. And
He needs instruction.
oh my
supervision.
dear Lord, I mean, my car does not have like a four-wheel drive or anything like that.
Yeah.
One time and I understand the snow plows come back and around and
Yeah.
they do a rebuild, but it was just all iced over.
Right.
Oh, I couldn't get over it. I mean, I was stuck in my driveway, so that's why I had said to Elaine, no, I'm staying here
Yeah,
because I got to make sure that this Stephen does what I need
Right,
him to
yeah, there was some type of ice thing that happened as well.
Yeah.
I was digging, and then I couldn't get into my shed because it was iced up, so I couldn't get my digger shovel to break the ice. But I
It's
did
a
it.
lot of work, Janet.
I went and put more ice there. I was like, I'm gonna. Then the car got stuck. But anyway, he did a good job. So, and Barbara's saying, I'm in Florida. So what's the temperature like, Barbara, with you?
You really want to know?
Yes.
It's 80.
That's what I'm going to.
Ah, yes.
That would be lovely to defrost the bones, you know?
It's like to me, 80 is like the perfect.
Oh,
It
yes.
is.
Lovely,
That's perfection.
lovely. Deserve it,
Well,
Barbara.
at night I like it to be, 65.
So the earth, yeah.
Cool.
A little cooler for sleep.
Sorry, I'm having trouble finding my agenda. I can't.
Okay.
Does everyone else have an agenda?
On my phone.
Yeah.
Okay.
You sent it to us.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm looking in my drive, but I'm going to go back to looking on my phone. I think that's probably my best bet.
Okay.
I have friends who are so good at naming and saving things on their computers. They can always find things.
know,
Right.
well, that's what
Yeah.
It's not
what
my,
I did.
Yeah.
But you know what I do? I copy and paste. So a lot of times, what I'll do is, I'll use January.
Right.
and-
you have to be
and
so
then
careful when you do
just
that.
Rename it.
Yeah, the
But
renaming
I
thing.
thought I did it with you, but anyway, let me get to find it
But the
here.
agenda actually says 20. I think. Let me see your agenda.
Committee,
I've got agenda January 22nd, the top of it, but I think that's.
meeting agenda, here we go.
This one says it's February 12th meeting, but it's named January 22nd.
Right, yes, that's what I've
Well,
got,
that's
yes.
probably
That's
what,
why you're
Right,
probably.
yes, yeah, because I kept looking, I thought, oh, no, this must be it, but she just left the same. Right, yes.
sorry about that, that's what I did, so, and I still can't open it on, my problem is, it's a Google Doc, and I don't always get to open it on my phone, so let me try again, see if I can get, January then. It says February, you're saying it says February?
No, the title of it is Mission Committee Meeting Agenda, January 22.
Yeah, 2000,
Okay.
right.
Now, no,
Yeah.
I'm really getting trouble here. Why? Do I have too
You
many
made sure
things
we
up?
all had them. The agenda.
Let's see what I can do here. I'm getting frozen out of my Google. Let me try recent.
You want what day it came?
11:29 a.m. Let's see.
When you sent it? Right.
Does it just say update from Elaine?
Yes?
Okay. You know what, I think it's very similar to last month, so that's why.
Right, yes,
I-
yeah.
I looked at it and I said, oh no, that's last month's. Okay, I am printing it out now, so we can get started soon. Sorry to hold everyone up. And we can start with prayer. And let me get the prayer. Jeez. What is meeting? Sorry about that. This is not my day.
I put a report, Elaine, in the annual report for the stewardship, just because you had asked at one point, where we were at with stewardship. Do you remember asking me that? With pledges?
Yes, I did. I did ask you that, yes.
So the pledges last year were like 76,000, and they were paid at 85,000. Yeah. The pledges this year are at 82,000.
That's a nice
It is
increase.
nice. It's nice. It's surprising. I look back at all those years. I spent a month of stewardship campaigning, letters and all that, driving people to give, and never produced any increase.
From how many people is that?
Wow, that was from 900 members.
But I'm saying,
Oh, from this?
yeah.
I don't know. I didn't look at that. It's I don't want to guess. It's probably about 30,
That's
35
what
people.
I would guess.
Yeah.
Which, you feel a little more involved when you're
Yeah.
part of that
Yeah, right.
versus even 200.
Yeah.
Well, some of them, yeah.
Okay, I think I have my act together now. The prayer actually is one I used, I think I mentioned in Bible study last week. It's from Mother Teresa. People are often unreasonable and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you're kind, people may accuse you of ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you're honest, people may cheat you. Be honest anyway. If you find happiness, people may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today may be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway. Give the world the best you have, and it may never be enough. Give your best anyway. For you now, in the end, it is between, for you see in the end, it's between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, now let's see if I can get back to see you. This will be interesting. No, that's not it. Let's try this
We'll
one.
see you.
Sorry about that. I am a Luddite for sure. Okay. Okay, the first part of the agenda is Elaine.
Amen.
What to say? You got to hear. I'm leaving a week from now.
Leaving on a jet plane?
I am on a jet plane, hopefully. The one that has adequate air traffic control.
Yes.
And all the other important things, like gas and
Safety checks, you know, and not my friend who left yesterday was at Dulles Airport, and she sent a message. I'm like, aren't you on your way to Uganda? She said, we're sitting on the plane, they're de-icing it.
Oh, okay.
You know, like that feeling.
I know, yeah,
I
yeah.
never like that.
No,
My
no.
friends
Anyway, I
went
hope
to
that-
Cedar
I hope-
Rapids.
You're going to be okay by the
Iowa
time you go next week.
Yesterday for an AmeriCorps program. So as far as I know, he's in Iowa with which I'm sure has more snow than you have.
Oh yeah, this isn't that bad, but, you know, it's just funny how when you go through quite a few winters without much snow,
Yeah,
then
yeah,
if it
yeah.
comes, you know.
He's like,
week
oh,
after
whoa,
week,
what did we do before?
I liked it the other way.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shock.
I mean, I grew up with,
Because we've had worse than this, really, haven't
Oh,
we?
yeah.
But not
Not
in
lately.
recent years. No, we've had like.
well, I grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and we had snow, you know, there was snow from December to March. Always, there was always some snow on the ground.
We had that in New Jersey too.
Yeah,
Yeah, at what time?
For sure.
yeah.
Yep.
And it's changed. So anyway, I've got a lot.
So are the people that left yesterday, are they going to Uganda?
Yes, there are two women that have gone with us a number of times in the past, but they kind of do their own thing. They've made friends here and there, and they're wonderful people. But when they're along, it's kind of like herding cats, you know?
Oh, okay.
Oh, let's do that, you know?
They have a mind of their own.
They do,
Right.
and, you know, we can't do anything about that. So they don't always go at the same time we go, and I overlap by maybe a day with them this time.
Are you traveling on your own this time? Are you traveling on
I
your own?
am, but Dana and Catherine Hesbeck are going to join me.
Oh, right, okay.
After.
I met Dana here.
Yeah, Dana and Catherine. You met Catherine.
Catherine, right,
His
yes.
husband-
Oh, great,
Her
yes.
husband, Dana.
Oh, right, okay, right, yes, yes.
Yeah,
Great.
will meet me in
That's what she told me.
about 2 weeks or so into the
Lovely.
trip. And they just got back from the Amazon.
Whoa.
Yeah, look
Ooh.
at them, huh?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's going to be an interesting time. We've gotten the results of the primary school and their big exams and the secondary, the lower level secondary, and they did very well. It's interesting. This is the first year that they have a whole new curriculum being tested, and feel like we were very fortunate that we had been forward-looking and had the right facilities in place to do the new curriculum, which is, you know, it's not new here. It's what I learned when I was in college in the 60s. They're finally getting away from, you know, rote memorization
Right,
kind
the
of
three,
stuff.
yeah.
So anyway, they were really pleased. They did very well. And so we'll have a little celebration for that, I think. And I've got a bunch of other little things to do, like getting trees, fruit trees to get them planted, and
What kind of fruit?
well, all kinds of tropical fruits.
Mango,
Yeah.
mango,
And
bananas. Bananas.
citrus, banana.
Citrus,
I have a whole long list, actually, different ones, but pomegranate. Anyway, we've got a long list, and some have been planted, but we've got an area that I did a little fundraising appeal on, and we're going to make that a lovely little,
Orchard, like an orchard, lovely.
mixed
Yeah.
fruit orchard. And lots of book buying, which will be fun.
Great.
And a lot of the other stuff is going to be usual, taking pictures and having the students do an activity and so forth. So,
Do you still need more yarn?
oh,
Because
can
I haven't
use
been
more.
here, so. Are you here this Sunday?
I plan to be.
Oh, okay. Yes. I should have brought it today.
That'd be great.
I
Yeah,
just remembered.
Several people
It just
have
came
given
into.
Several people have given me
Yeah,
yarn,
right.
and Sabine gave me a bunch of knitting needles, all the same size. She got them somewhere.
Oh,
kind of
really?
really
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh,
So
lovely.
for a class. you know,
Yes,
that'd be
yeah.
great.
I was going to ask if you need those, but
And
the fact
crochet
that she's
hooks.
given. Oh, okay.
Crochet hook she gave me, and so forth. So, yeah, I think, and I got a message from the art teacher saying, oh, that's in the curriculum this term, and it's so great you're
Fantastic.
coming with
Right.
it.
Yes, yeah. Right.
It's
Oh,
fun.
wow,
Yeah. Good. I've got plenty.
that's great.
Lots of nice little, little things to get pictures
Yes.
of and be involved in. Okay.
Okay.
No problem with politics at the moment, with
Well,
where you are,
I
because you don't receive.
I
Yeah.
will tell you,
Yeah.
one of the reasons I'm more anxious than usual.
Yeah.
Is because of the USAID.
Right.
being-
Right. I'm
being
one. Yeah.
canceled.
Although that doesn't necessarily